Thank you for joining us at Grateful Gratitude with Lolo and Lexi. We are practicing gratitude girls that strive every day to recognize and celebrate our blessings. We are a mother and daughter that practice gratitude every day and put God in the center of our life. The only way to live a blessed and happy life is to be grateful. May you feel God's love and blessing each and every day.
It's time for another episode of Grateful Gratitude with Lolo. What are we talking about today?
Well, I have an interesting question for you. Do you think you could paint a picture of your faith?
That's interesting.
So if I asked you to either get an easel with some paints or a sketchbook with a pencil, what would be your vision, or do you know what would be your vision of your faith if you had to put it in a picture?
First thing I just think the cross. That's the first thing I think of.
And I think that's very common. And let me just go a little further. I have a older adult reflection group that I teach every Sunday afternoon, and I asked them to do this. And the first thing they said was, well, the cross or maybe Jesus's face, which I think would be what we would think of first. Well, I got thinking a little deeper the week before I taught them on this, and I thought, really, how am I going to, how do I visualize my faith, and how would I put that down and show someone? And I think that there were all kinds of things that started flooding to my mind, and primarily it was people. For example, my first marriage was riddled with alcoholism and drug abuse. It was a very dark time, yet I am now married to a wonderful man. And the way that I met that man is really a unique story, because I was getting ready to move. Lexi and I were going to move from Illinois down to Dallas, start a whole new life. And I went out for dinner and drinks with two of my girlfriends. And they said, you've said that you're doing this online dating. Now, this goes way back, to 2003. So this is when it was. So it's like when Match.com first showed up and stuff. So I said, okay, I'll show you. The problem is the movers are coming Monday. Everything's packed in boxes. My computer's not even hooked up. So they said, well, come on, just show us. So I hooked the computer back up. This is in the days of dial-up. I live in a very small community. So I'm really want to emphasize how much work this was. So I did it and went to the dating site. It was called UDate, which I'm sure doesn't even exist anymore. And the way it worked was it would match you with potential people that you would be, suited for. And there was probably 35 or 40 pictures on the screen. And I told one of my girlfriends, I'll show you how it works. Just pick someone randomly and I'll start the conversation, because it was all live conversation. So she said, okay, go ahead. I'm going to point to this guy here randomly.
Yeah.
Don't have much more to tell you except he's my husband today. But when you sit and you look at that, I had been through such a difficult, tough, dark marriage that all of a sudden, here I am presented with a wonderful man who's kind and faithful and generous, excellent father for Lexi. And it was not by the luck of the draw. It wasn't that my friends pointed to him. It was that God showed me there was better. And, and that I think was one of the truly first times I understood what faith was. So I would draw a picture of my husband.
That's awesome. That's really great. I do want to tell you that my wife and I also met on online dating. So I know it works. I can attest to that fact that it works. That's great. The more we talked here, I also thought about the other word that I thought of was grace. And I think that is just such a powerful word. If you asked me to pick one word to sum up my faith other than Jesus, if you told me I couldn't use Jesus, it would be grace. But I don't know how I would draw a picture of grace. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think cross. I think grace. I love your picture, and I think what sticks out to me from that is that it's going to be different for everybody. That we all have the same faith, we all believe in the same thing, but what it looks like for every person is different.
Right. And I honestly believe it would be whatever mountain that Jesus took you over, you know? And we all know that we have trials and tribulations so that we can have ministries in life, because we're here to serve God. We're not here for ourselves. And so I think about that too. And I think how many pictures I could paint because of I was in a situation and God brought me out better. And I think a lot of times people forget, you know, faith is truly believing and having the confidence that it's going to be okay, that you don't need anxiety and worry. That's a human emotion. That didn't come from God. God doesn't send us anxiety and fear. You know, it says, fear not 365 times in the Bible. So I would ask people to kind of look prospectively a little bit different on this, and think, you know, what miracles in my life has God brought me through? Because there are miracles. My daughter, when she was pregnant with little Levi, you know, my grandson, she unfortunately went through a really dark time with OCD and anxiety. It was a walk that I was very fearful, because here is my daughter saying, you know, my 23rd birthday's coming up and I don't know if I'm going to live to see it. Wow. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And she wasn't talking suicide. She was talking the OCD and the anxiety that had built up in her. And this is primarily because she does medicate for anxiety successfully. But when she found out she was pregnant, she decided, I'm not going to take medications. I don't want to chance anything.
Sure, yeah.
But again, this was a dark period that, you know, I had to surrender it to God and say, how are we going to get through this? And, you know, he brought us through, and he brought us through with a beautiful, healthy little baby boy. And every night that I sat on my patio and just kept saying, I'm giving it to you, God, I don't know what to do. That's a picture of my faith. So I could do a picture of Lexi and Levi and, you know, Ty, what we all went through.
I love what you say about miracles. You know, I teach 6th grade Sunday school at my church. And one of the things that I constantly have to bring up to them is right now we're talking about the life of Jesus. We just talked about him being resurrected. So we just got done going through an entire unit on his miracles. And I think there's this prevailing notion that if only I could see Jesus in the flesh and see him performing miracles. Well, my two responses to that, one is think of all the people who saw Jesus performing miracles and still chose not to believe. But my other response, the one that I think is more powerful and the one that I emphasize is open your eyes and just reframe your thinking. We see miracles every day. And, you know, you're not going to see somebody turn water into wine, or you're not going to see somebody, you know, walk up, spit and put mud in somebody's eyes and they can see again. But we do see miracles. And it just takes, like you said, we've got to reframe our way of thinking, and we can witness those miracles. You know, with my wife, when our daughter was born about 1.5 years ago, my wife was very fearful of childbirth. When that came, when our daughter was going to be born, she was very afraid about it, very anxious, very nervous. And so we had been praying to God, can we find a way through this? And we didn't see it at the time, but my wife had what's called cholestasis of pregnancy, where she had liver issues. The liver backs up. She was itchy all over. There was no relief. And she was miserable. But you know what it made her do? It made her want the childbirth to come. And we didn't see it at the time, but looking back, I realized this was God getting her through that moment. Because I don't know how she would have gone into it if she wasn't, for lack of a better word, miserable. And she wanted to get through it. She wanted to get to childbirth. And I look at it and I say, I can't think of any other way that she would have been ready to do that. And so it's crazy to think of something like that. And what could have been adverse to a pregnancy, but I do think that was a miracle that God gave us to help her through that difficult time.
Absolutely. And, you know, she also stood in faith. You guys both stood in faith, and you knew that the outcome was going to be beautiful. You know, I know that being a woman, childbirth can be very fearful, and you can have some things that complicate it. But when that baby is born and they tell you, you know, 10 toes, every 10 fingers. And I remember when Lexi was born, they said she's got perfectly arched eyebrows and beautiful red lips. And I'm like, but is she healthy? But
Right.
So God has a way of turning that into such a beautiful thing. And yeah, miracles do happen today. We have to look for them, though. It's just like with my dad going through cancer. When he went through chemo the first round, and they did the scan, and they said, your tumor has shrunk 20%. And this is pancreatic cancer.
It's incredible.
That is God at work.
Yes.
Nobody can tell me
Yes.
differently, that God's blessing those doctors to do the right things, and He's His hands on my dad. And so I'm not fearful. So
That's awesome. And I think we find true peace in the face of fear. At least me. I only find that through faith.
Mm-hmm.
I only find that through Jesus Christ.
let's just close quickly. And I just want to say that if you want to draw that picture,
Yeah.
just do it in your mind. I'm a very visual learner, so so just do it in your mind. Just think, even through the pandemic or something good that's happened that, we didn't see this coming, but look where I am now. And I can give you lists and lists of things that have become better through the pandemic. So I'd be curious, just put down in the comments under this video if you do have an attempt to draw your faith. I would love to know what that is. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again.